I'm about to show you 4 ancient Latin American mysteries science still can't explain. And what they reveal could flip everything that we thought we knew about early life in the Americas. From jungle spheres, too perfect to be handmade, to a site in Chile that could rewrite human history, these 4 mysteries have never been completely solved. Well, at least not yet. And at the end, you'll decide which one of these becomes our next full episode. New to the mysteries of Latin America? My name is Andrew, and I bring stories of the myths, legends, history, and unsolved mysteries happening everywhere from the northern border of Mexico to the southern tip of Argentina and all across the Caribbean. I do this so that people with roots in Latin America know a little bit more about our stories, and also so people who don't have those roots know a little bit more about what makes us, us. So after seeing the video, comment with the mystery that grabs you the most. The top vote gets its own episode, which means I'm going to fall headfirst into a rabbit hole and then I'll report back to you. Or you can send me a story from your own roots. Now let's start with one of the biggest and oldest enigmas in the Americas. We're going to start with the giants. In the Mexican state of Tabasco, at the ancient site of La Venta, lie some of the most powerful and puzzling sculptures ever found, the colossal stone heads of the Olmecs. 17 have been discovered so far, scattered across the states of Tabasco and Veracruz, each one over 10 feet tall, some weighing more than 50,000 pounds, and they weren't carved last century or even last millennium. These giants were shaped as long as 2,800 years ago, around the time the Iliad was being first told, and centuries before Rome existed. Carved from volcanic rock, these were hauled nearly 60 miles. No wheels, no metal tools, no pack animals. 50,000 pounds. Just human hands, stone tools, and a level of organization and determination that still stuns archaeologists. And it gives people who think aliens did it food for thought. Each head is unique. Distinct facial features, closed eyes, helmet-like headdresses. Some say they're rulers or ancient warriors. Some even say they're ball players. But there's no writing, no inscriptions, and many were buried on purpose, maybe to hide them or preserve them. One theory that has stirred debate for decades is that these faces resemble people of African descent. Afrocentric historian Ivan van Sertima made the case in his 1976 book, They Came Before Columbus, pointing to features like broad noses and full lips as possible signs of pre-columbian contact between Africa and the Americas. Mainstream archaeologists disagree, saying the heads reflect indigenous Mesoamerican diversity and that there's no evidence of contact in the way of artifacts, DNA, or language links. Still, the theory persists, not just as a historical question, but part of a larger conversation about culture, identity, and who gets to shape the story of the Americas. Maybe that's why the story of the Olmec heads hits so hard. They're enigmatic, silent, and we still don't know who they were or why they were made. Did they honor kings, mark sacred places, guard ceremonial centers? Science is still trying to figure them out. Now let's go from towering heads in Mexico to something smaller and rounder, but just as powerful, deep in the jungles of Costa Rica. If you hike in the rainforests of southern Costa Rica, near the Diquís Delta and Isla del Caño, you might stumble upon something that doesn't seem possible. A stone sphere so perfectly round it looks machine-made. But these are ancient. They're part of a collection of over 500 spheres. Ranging from a few inches to over 8 feet wide, some weighing more than 30,000 pounds. Most are carved from gabbro, a dense volcanic rock, and shaped, somehow, by a pre-columbian culture called the Diquís, likely using only stone tools. And what stuns archaeologists isn't just the scale or the number, it's the precision. Some of these spheres are nearly geometrically perfect, and many were found deliberately placed in straight lines, triangles, rectangles, even spiral patterns. To this day, their purpose is a mystery. Were they territorial markers, or were they ceremonial monuments? Some suggest they tracked the movements of the stars or the sun. Unfortunately, many were dynamited to see if they had gold inside. They didn't. and that blasted away vital context that we'll never get back. Today, a few dozen are still in their original locations, and they're preserved as official UNESCO World Heritage Sites. But we still don't know how they were made or why. Have you seen one of these in person down in Costa Rica or have a theory as to what they were for? Let us know in the comments. The great thing about this channel is that we can all learn together. And next, we head down south to the Andes Mountains, where erosion, legend, and a strange energy come together. High in the Andes Mountains, about 12,000 feet above sea level, there's a windswept plateau that defies logic. This is Markawasi. At first, it just looks like an eroded rock field, nothing more. And then you start to see them. Animal shapes, profiles of human heads. One formation has been given the name Monument to Humanity, and it has sparked intense debate. Some say it shows African, European, and indigenous American profiles carved side by side as a symbol of unity. Mainstream geologists call that pareidolia, seeing shapes in the rocks, kind of like we do when we look up at the sky and see shapes in the clouds. They also say that the wind and the rain can sculpt just about anything. But many locals and researchers aren't convinced. They believe that Markawasi was a sacred site of a lost civilization that came before the Incas. And they say that the shapes aren't accidents at all, but eroded sculptures left behind by an unknown people. Others point to strange phenomena. Hikers reporting compass malfunctions, glitching electronics, mysterious lights in the sky, and vivid dreams that come out of nowhere when you spend time there. What deepens the mystery is that despite the fascination, Markawasi has received surprisingly little formal study. No major government digs, no long-term university-led excavations, just scattered investigations by a handful of dedicated past archaeologists and researchers, and decades of passionate debate. And believe it or not, the site is not officially recognized as an archaeological site by the Peruvian government. It sits in a kind of limbo, documented but not deeply explored, protected but not fully explained. And maybe that's part of the allure. Brazil has its own Stonehenge at Calçoene. Peru has its carved wall at Aramumuru and the Nazca Lines, which we've covered in earlier episodes. But Markawasi still resists easy explanation. And just when you thought that you've seen the limits of ancient America, what if I told you that there's a site that doesn't just bend the timeline of when humans came to Latin America, it busts it wide open? Let's go to Chile. For most of the 20th century, archaeologists told a neat and tidy story. Humans arrived in the Americas about 13,000 years ago, crossing a land bridge from Siberia to Alaska, then slowly moved south. That theory was built around the Clovis culture, named after stone tools found near Clovis, New Mexico, which were considered the oldest evidence of humans in the Americas. Then, Monte Verde changed everything. In the 1970s, near a small creek in southern Chile, archaeologist Tom Dillehay and his team uncovered something wild. Stone tools, fire pits, wooden tent stakes, medicinal plants, even preserved footprints. And when tested, the site dated back at least 14,500 years, more than 1,000 years before Clovis. Some evidence shows that people might have lived there even earlier than that, up to 18,000 years ago. That's still in debate, but what's not in debate is this. The site was impeccably preserved in soft clay and ancient peat bogs. The dates were verified by multiple labs, and by the 1990s, Monte Verde was officially recognized as the oldest confirmed human settlement in the Americas. But if people were living this far south, this early, they couldn't have just walked there in a couple of centuries. Many researchers now think they traveled by boat following the Pacific coast. That ancient shoreline is now underwater. But the theory says that they hugged the edge of the continent, possibly island hopping, thousands of years before the Clovis people ever showed up inland. Monte Verde didn't just push back the clock. It forced scientists to rewrite the story of how humans first spread across the Americas. But it also opened up new questions. Who were these people? Where did they come from? And if they made it this far south, how come we haven't found other remnants of their existence? Monte Verde didn't just challenge the timeline that we had. It's forcing scientists to rethink everything they thought they knew about how human beings made it to the Americas in the first place. I think about this a lot. Not just how Latin America is rich in culture and history, but also in mystery and secrets. We're talking about entire chapters of history that are either missing, buried, deleted, erased, or just waiting for the right person to see them in a new way. And with technology like LiDAR, underwater drones, and ancient DNA testing moving fast, we're closer than ever to finding out more. As of now, these 4 stories don't have all the answers, but I'm confident they will. Maybe we're the ones meant to come along and ask the right questions that serve as the key that opens the lock to these discoveries. And now it's your turn to weigh in. Which one of these 4 stories is the one that I should do the deep dive on? Or do you have your own story that I should report on? You can reach out via the comments below. That's great. If you want, you can also DM me on Instagram. That's going to be at Andy Colón VO. Or you can go ahead and send me an email directly at andy@andycancun.com. You can also find all this in the description below. And talking about comments, I read every single one of them. And I am blown away and honored by the insight, your perspectives, your respect, and your positivity. Seriously, thank you. And know that every share, every view, and every minute watched helps keep these stories alive. And that's how we build something that's bigger than a video, bigger than a channel. And before we go, I've got a list of resources also down in the description of websites, books, and more learning that you could do so you could do your own research. Friend, mil gracias for joining me here on the Mysteries of Latin America. I'm Andrew Colón, and until the next time, gracias y adiós.